Hey guys, great to be here with you today. This is Ben here on the X, and this is also the Hardcore Punk Project, and I have a guest joining me today. Devon is a mixing and recording engineer, musician, and writer. He has two releases under this name, Surface of the Sun, two under 7 Acres, and the first ebook in a series called Skyview. So Devon, welcome to the Hardcore Punk Project. How are
Thanks for
you
having me,
today?
buddy. I'm doing fantastic. This is exciting. I'm glad we can make this work out.
All right. Well, this is the first solo artist I've interviewed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the last two guys I've interviewed three were actually bands. Hell Yeah, Fear Run, and Brother Leeds.
Right. I heard you did Hell Yeah. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Too bad Chad was a no-show.
Oh, that's a bummer. That's a talented guy right there for sure.
Mm-hmm. Are you okay being interviewed by a teenager?
I am okay. Yes.
All right. Have you ever performed live?
I have not performed live in quite a few years. I did the last live performance. I was early mid-20s. So any of the Surface of the Sun material, I haven't taken to the stage yet. No. The last thing were like other little bands I had growing up in high school and stuff like that.
Have you ever been part of a band or a group?
I did, as I just mentioned, some of the bands kind of in high school. The first group that I ever got together with, I think I was in grade 10, and we started by doing a lot of covers like of Goldfinger and Green Day and Korn and Limp Bizkit and stuff like that. And then throughout the years, I started jamming with some other people. Then I got into college and I started doing some collaborations, but nothing really developed into a big band or type project that would actually go around doing albums and performances.
All right, that works. And I'm addicted to Green Day in a very unhealthy way.
Yeah? What do you think of their new single?
Oh, all of their new stuff is good. I don't care what other people think.
Yeah, back in the 90s, like when Dookie came out, oh man, that was just fantastic. I love that.
Okay. Who are your biggest inspirations?
For music, there's quite a few. The band that had the biggest influence and on me when I was growing up, like I got into enjoying music when I was quite young, like elementary school, but it never really hit me hard and became something I was really passionate about until I heard Korn in like 90, I think it was around 96, around Life is Peachy album. And that kind of changed everything for me. That just kind of set me down my path of wanting to learn how to play music and just listening and enjoying music, and kind of broadened my horizons because I'd never heard anything that heavy and that intense before. And yeah, from there, it kind of went off and just started to spread in all these different genres. So the biggest is definitely Korn. System of a Down was really influential for me for a while as well too. And then in kind of after 2000s and stuff, I started to get into more progressive music, and bands like Tool, Chevelle, A Perfect Circle. Those really started to have an impact on me. But the big one for sure is Korn.
All right, that works. Korn's a lot. Korn and all of those other bands you mentioned are a lot of my favorites. One of my biggest influences in terms of music is actually AC/DC.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were like the first real kind of rock music that I heard.
Oh, fantastic.
Okay, this is a twist on a classic question that I've asked all the artists.
Okay.
Who would you consider collaborating with and why? But they have to be a female artist.
I'm going to answer this in kind of two parts because I tackle my music in two halves, both as a writing and a musician, and both as an engineer, so behind the glass doing the recording. And most of the time when I'm thinking about collaborating with artists, I usually think about how I would like to mix their music. And one of the groups that has a female vocalist in it, and her voice is amazing, is Of Monsters and Men. And I love all the sounds and the different instruments and everything in there. So to be able to work with that band would be absolutely fantastic. And as a musician, I would honestly love to do something very contrasting. So somebody from a different genre, maybe a pop genre like a Taylor Swift, or even Britney Spears, which is from my generation. I mean, that'd be fantastic, having her sing over some heavy distorted guitars. That'd be pretty cool.
Okay, I can agree with you there.
Okay, perfect.
Which instruments do you play?
Guitar is my main instrument. Then I play bass as well. I can get on a drum kit and hold a little bit of a beat, but after seeing that video of you playing the other day, I think you've got me beat there. And then the rest of the sounds that I incorporate into my music, I play through a keyboard. My piano skills are very, very minimal, but with the way I produce and put everything together through sequencing, it's pretty easy for me to manipulate things the way I want.
All right. Do you boil your strings at all in terms of bass?
No, I've never done that, actually. It's been a long time since I heard about that.
You really should. It gets all the oil and dirt and out of your strings.
Good to know. Good advice.
I play drums, bass, and guitar as well, though I'm mainly a drummer. Guitar was something I picked up later.
Oh, really? Okay, that's cool. I thought guitar was your main instrument, but yeah, you seem very comfortable on a kit, buddy.
Yeah, I've been playing drums for the longest, since I was like 6.
Oh, nice.
And I have yet to find bandmates to practice with.
Oh, someday, hopefully you'll do it. I'm sure you'll find some.
Nobody in Kamloops, at least.
Oh, yeah, I guess it's a bit of a smaller city, right? It's a bit tougher.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So do you just play an electronic kit, or do you have an acoustic as well?
It's right here.
Oh, nice.
This is a Roland TD-25. I
Yeah,
have
the
an
Roland
acoustic
units are
kit.
nice.
I have an acoustic kit down in my basement, but I don't really use it a lot, as I have extremely sensitive hearing.
Okay.
What's your favorite guitar brand?
Paul Reed Smith.
Sorry, what was that?
Paul Reed Smith. PRS?
Ever heard of them?
So my history with them goes back quite a long time. So, I was about 16 at the time, and this kid I went to school with, incredible guitarist. He still to this day is phenomenal. And his dad had gifted him this old Paul Reed Smith that he had. And I fell in love with the band and the brand and the make of guitar. Since then, they're just beautiful pieces of art. And it took quite a few years before I was able to afford and buy my own, but both of my guitars are Paul Reed Smiths. Carlos Santana, he plays Paul Reed Smiths.
All right.
Yeah, he's got a signature series with them. Wonderful instruments.
Oh, now I remember. I remember watching the video about Carlos teaching his own master class now.
Yeah.
Not a good idea since it's not live. Oh, now on A Dying Star. I see you completed recording and mixing the album in a very small town in northern BC. What small town was that?
Hudson's Hope.
Never
Have you heard of it?
that.
Do you know where Fort St. John is?
Yeah.
It's about an
Newfoundland.
hour outside of Fort St. John. I think
All
there's
right.
about 700 people that live there. It's pretty small.
And then in 2007, you chose the project name Surface of the Sun, and A Dying Star was released.
Mhm.
Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, the album was released a couple of years later, but that was about the time that I'd come up with the band name or the project name. Yeah.
Why Surface of the Sun?
So I wanted, it really took me a long time to settle on a name. I didn't want to use my own name, even though it was a solo project. I thought it was more fitting to go under a different name. And I'd always liked names that were a little bit longer as opposed to, the Beatles or something very kind of simple and short and generic. I wanted something a little longer. And I also wanted it to have a bit of more of a scientific feel to it. And when I always got caught up in trying to figure out names for something, whether it was a song that I was working on that was still in the writing phase or even my dogs, I always went to my movie rack where I had all my DVDs and Blu-rays, and I would just kind of sort through them and figure out if a character name or something like that was fitting for what I was trying to do. So when it was coming down crunch time to figure out a name for the project, I did exactly that. I went back to my DVD rack and went through there. And one of my all-time favorite sci-fi movies is a movie called Sunshine. And I don't know if have you watched that?
No,
No,
never even heard of it.
It's a really, really brilliant film. And the premise about what they're kind of doing in the story is a little bit quirky, but the movie itself and the journey and the characters are fantastic. And it's about these people that are traveling towards the sun. And actually, if I remember correctly, I think there's one of the songs in the score is actually called Surface of the Sun, or Walking on the Surface of the Sun. So that's how I ended up stumbling across it, and I thought it was fitting and decided to do it and put it on the CD.
Have you ever considered being an astrologist, like a person who studies space?
I've always been fascinated with outer space. I would love to be an astronaut. That would be one of my dream jobs. I've always been fascinated in physics and how the universe works on all the different levels, and how light works and what light is and all these things. So anything with space would just be like a dream job.
All right. Can you fill us in on the lyric to your songs, please? Lyrics to your song, please. First up, we have the title track off of A Dying Star.
Dying Root Star is a song that is about the conflict between science and religion, and where the world currently is at, with still having influence and discrepancies and arguments from both sides, and what that does to society and cultures, and being able to move forward and advance to a more positive space.
All right. And Obsidian Shards. I played Obsidian Shards and Ellipse on my first show, I think.
Yeah.
I chose Ellipse because it has a lot of space noises and it sounded creepy.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I was going for.
And Obsidian Shards, what are the lyrics about that?
So I've had a couple challenging physical medical type conditions. One of them is a pinched nerve in my neck that causes me lots of discomfort in my arm and my hand and my neck and things like that. And it had been something I was struggling with for a while. So that song was me kind of releasing that frustration a little bit about this abnormality that somehow just kind of developed within my neck that's caused me all this pain and issues with sleeping and all of that stuff. So it's referring to that discomfort and that struggle that I've been going through for quite a few years.
In your music, I heard you changing up your time signature and using polyrhythms. It was interesting. I had this discussion with the band members from Hell Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose that's Tool influence.
Probably, definitely since I got into Tool, I've listened to a lot of stuff in the prog arena, whether it's metal or rock, and polyrhythms are really fantastic. And especially my current drummer, Chris, who is absolutely amazing. He can do some pretty awesome stuff on the drums. I did it a little bit with the guitar and the vocals on the first album. I think mostly on Into a World. If I remember correctly, I've got a different count between the guitars and the lead vocals in there. But yeah, it creates this really neat dynamic. It's a bit more challenging to write and make sure it flows properly, but I think it's a pretty cool thing to be able to pull off.
All right. What is your favorite tuning to play in? I'm assuming drop D.
I am drop C all the time.
Oh.
Yeah.
Looks like I read that wrong.
No, that's all right. So I originally wrote the A Dying Star album in D standard, so everything down a whole step. And I was getting ready to record it, and I was thinking about my voice and what struggles or obstacles I'd have to overcome based on my abilities at the time. So this was quite a few years ago, and I felt like the tuning wasn't quite low enough to, one, be as heavy as I wanted it to be, and then still allow me to comfortably do all the harmonies and stuff I was planning out. So I was literally sitting in the studio in front of the computer with my guitar on my lap, and decided to go, no, I'm going to change everything to drop C, detune the guitar, check the intonation, and then just redid it all from there.
All right. So you released the Panacea EP as the follow-up to A Dying Star on September 6th of last year. Let's talk about this EP, shall we?
Sure.
So first we're talking about The Science Says, track 1, 5 minutes and 3 seconds. Did I hear some influence from System of a Down in this?
Perhaps I hadn't thought about that, actually. It might have carried over when I was composing that song. And I had a bunch of material, and I decided I originally wanted to do a full-length album again. And then I decided, because it takes me so long, I'm going to cut that down into an EP so I can release stuff more frequently. And I tried to get a good balance of different things I was working on. And that song itself, I wrote it to try and bring some of the same type of energy that the title track off A Dying Star had. And That's really where it came from. But System of a Down, maybe a little bit there.
Oblivion, track 2. I like how you brought the bass to the song.
Thank you.
But shall we say you showcased an underappreciated instrument?
No, that's really cool to hear. I purposefully really wanted to create a song that was based around the bass guitar, and I started that opening riff in the song is how that song started. It all came from that riff, and the bass guitar can do so many amazing things. So I do think it's definitely underutilized and underrated. It's more than just a foundational instrument. It can really carry a song.
All right. And the silence, the second longest song on the EP, more bass again.
Mm-hmm.
Also, what is that traditional instrument I hear? Is it a sitar, perhaps?
No, there's a couple different ones in there. I'm using them again on the single that I'm working on right now. They're primarily Chinese instruments. There's oh geez, I'd have to get the list again, but on that album, I think there's 6 different Chinese instruments that I used.
Is a shamisen one of them? I know the shamisen comes from
shamisen
Japan.
is one of them, yeah. Shamisen's one, an erhu, I think one's called a pika, P-I-K-A.
I think we'll go with that.
Yeah.
And the last question we have is Panacea. Well, not the last question, but like the last question about the EP.
Sure.
You have Panacea, almost 9 minutes long, the longest on the EP.
I think it's definitely the most progressive song that's on the album, especially with the time signature change and the length of it, and how the song kind of ebbs and flows and has a long intro. I had a few songs that kind of fit that kind of vibe and that kind of feel, because I really like to write music like that. It's kind of the equivalent to Obsidian Shards on the first album. And this one just felt really good to put together with the other 3 songs that were there to give that contrast and that balance between the way the first 2 songs on it felt, but still give a nice progressive element as well.
All right. I was reading a review on your EP the other day, and you got 1.5 stars.
I did get some low ones, yeah.
It says you ripped off Tool.
Yeah. I've heard that opinion.
I don't believe it, though. You have your own original sound.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
I see when I resourced you, you're also a writer as well.
Correct. Yeah, I released my first ebook, science fiction thriller novel last year, and the sequel to it, it's going to be a trilogy. The sequel is in revisions right now. So hopefully this year I'll get that out too.
That's good. All right. Now, can you share something with us that no one knows about you?
Oh.
It doesn't have to be embarrassing.
Well, that's good. Something about me that no. I was born in a very small northern town in British Columbia called Fort Nelson. And I spent the first couple of years of my life living in a log house in the middle of the bush, in the middle of nowhere, with no running water, no electricity. It was very, very, very rustic. And surprisingly, I still have some memories of that experience, which is probably really good, but that's definitely something not too many people can relate to these days.
Something that no one knows about me is that I have a secret passion for sitcoms.
Oh, okay. What's your favorite?
The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Oh, dude, classic. I would not have guessed you to say that one. That is awesome. I remember rushing home every day from school to go and watch that.
It's a great show.
It is.
Any tours planned in the future?
Nothing's planned. So the idea of getting Surface of the Sun on the stage is obviously challenging because it's a solo project, right? And
yes.
My songs, the arrangements are very complex, and there's lots of instruments and sounds. So to be able to pull that off, I need to find, a really large assortment of individuals to come and help me put that on stage. So I don't know how exactly to pull that off yet or what it looks like. Chris and I, we started jamming in December to see what some of the songs would, how they felt and what it might be like playing them live. And then unfortunately, after doing that a few times, we've come into the COVID pandemic, and then everybody's gone into isolation and stuff. So pretty much all that for everybody's kind of on hold. So I don't have any real kind of thoughts or updates until the world kind of gets, I guess, a little bit more back to normal.
Yeah, that's agree. Would you consider coming to Kamloops since they're easing up on the travel restrictions, kind of?
To do a show?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if I'm doing a show, yeah, there's quite a few places that I'll be playing in British Columbia. I've lived in a lot of different towns. I've spent a lot of time in Kamloops. I've had family that lives there. I've got friends that live there. So I think Kamloops would be a great spot to play.
All right. Well, Devon, as always, I have a challenge for each artist. I would like to take you where no man has gone before. Will you accept my challenge?
Okay.
Record an acoustic song with no metal influence and incorporate into it the purge siren, a steam engine whistle, and the automaton.
The automaton? What's the automaton?
This.
Okay.
Yes, I know. It looks like a living sperm cell.
It does. So
it's a thermal it's some kind of oscillator, and it makes these really cool sounds like this.
I've heard that before. It's hilarious. Okay, so I'll tell you what. You'd mentioned before that I have my other side project, 7 Acres, right?
Yeah.
And that's where I do all the stuff that doesn't fit under Surface of the Sun. And I'm in the process of rebranding that under my name right now. But I have about 4 acoustic guitar focused songs that I've been working on over the last couple of years. So if you send me those requirements in the communicator, so I have a record of them, I'll see what can happen, because I do actually have acoustic songs on the go.
All right. That sounds great.
Has anybody else accepted this?
Have you ever heard the purge siren or no?
I don't think so. Perhaps though.
Right. Purge siren, it's a very creepy sounding noise, and I'm sure it would work well in a Surface of the Sun song.
Cool.
Yes, all the bands that I have interviewed have accepted my challenges. Whether they do them or not is undetermined.
Right.
I asked Hell Yeah if they could record a song, if they could do a music video in 0G. I asked Brother Leeds to record a metal song. I asked Fear Run to do a Gaelic punk rock song with Highland dancing, and I asked you to do an acoustic song with a bunch of weird noises.
I like this. This is a cool addition to an interview.
Well, it looks like we're running out of time, actually. So, thanks for joining me here on the X, Devon. Stay safe, be well, and rock on.
You too, buddy. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.